Carl Jung, the renowned analytical psychologist, deeply explored human psychology and introduced many ideas about the nature of stupidity, such as unconsciousness, lack of critical thinking, and poor insight. In this video, we'll discuss 6 signs of a foolish person, according to Jung. First, not accepting your shadow. One of Jung's most important concepts is the shadow, those parts of ourselves we've suppressed into the unconscious. People often ignore or deny their shadow because it doesn't fit social norms. This dark side of the personality remains buried deep within, both individually and collectively. But when someone is unaware of their shadow or consciously rejects it, that shadow starts to control their life, often without their knowing. Jung believed that failing to accept your shadow can lead to psychological immaturity. It causes a person to live disconnected from their true self, projecting these dark aspects onto others, blaming, deceiving themselves, and losing inner wholeness, rather than recognizing them in themselves. According to Jung, true freedom comes only when we face and integrate our shadow. Otherwise, suppressing that dark side creates inner conflict and can lead to spiritual imbalance over time. Refusing to accept the shadow forces a person to constantly defend themselves against the outside world. Jung said that those who don't embrace their darker sides struggle with healthy relationships and often resort to manipulation, arrogance, or judgment. For example, if someone secretly feels inadequate, instead of acknowledging this, they might hide their flaws by criticizing others. This is only a temporary fix and can lead to deeper psychological issues. Someone who refuses to confront their shadow remains in a state of denial, constantly running away from their true self and rationalizing their unconscious behaviors. Jung called the path of psychological growth the process of individuation. It requires courage and an increased level of self-awareness. Many people consciously or unconsciously avoid this process because they don't want to face their darker side. Jung considered this one of the greatest foolishness, living superficially, ignoring our true nature and inner truth. Those who reject their shadow also feel the need to wear a mask constantly. Suppressed parts of ourselves can surface unexpectedly, sometimes taking over when least expected. Jung warned that when the shadow is not consciously integrated, it manifests in unhealthy ways, often with destructive consequences. True intelligence and wisdom begin with the ability to recognize your dark side and consciously work through it, as Jung emphasized. As a person suppresses their shadow, internal conflicts grow stronger. This often leads to blaming others, self-deception, and unconscious decisions. Only when someone has the courage to accept their shadow can they transform it, understand themselves more deeply, and find true freedom. The most important step for anyone wanting to explore the depths of the unconscious is to shed light on their own shadow and make it a conscious part of their personality. Another key sign is an inability to think deeply. Carl Jung introduced the idea that people need to reach a higher level of understanding. He believed consciousness isn't just about surface information. It's about how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. However, some people don't develop the capacity for deep thinking. They stay on a surface level, accepting things as they are without questioning or analyzing. Avoiding mental effort and critical thinking limits their growth over time. This not only blocks personal development, but also leads to poor decisions and a distorted view of reality. According to Jung, one of the greatest human abilities is expanding consciousness. Those who fail to do so remain stuck in old ideas and shallow perspectives. Over time, this can turn them into their own worst enemy. People who don't think deeply tend to oversimplify life and avoid understanding complex concepts. Instead of questioning why things happen, they accept things at face value. Jung believed that understanding our unconscious processes requires deep reflection. A mentally lazy person tries to control their life with superficial judgments instead of self-awareness. Such people only take in surface-level information and jump to quick conclusions. Deep thinking involves examining events from different angles and analyzing conflicting information. But those who prefer to stay in their comfort zone often don't bother to test or challenge their beliefs. They selectively accept information that supports their views and dismiss opposing ideas. This leads to mental rigidity and narrow-mindedness over time. A person who cannot think deeply usually struggles to see events from a broader perspective. Many aspects of life are made up of complex, interconnected systems, and understanding them requires the ability to connect different contexts. Surface thinkers tend to see things in black and white. Instead of trying to understand a complex topic, they want to label it as entirely true or false. Carl Jung believed that true freedom comes only when we uncover the patterns in our unconscious mind. But someone who can't think deeply gets trapped in past beliefs without realizing it, closing themselves off to new ideas. People lacking mental flexibility, who don't ask questions and see events one-dimensionally, tend to live more unconsciously. To fully develop their mental potential, a person must continually challenge their beliefs and look at situations from different angles. The inability to think deeply not only hinders personal growth, but also leads to social misunderstandings, polarization, and manipulation. True wisdom begins with the ability to critically assess oneself and one's surroundings. As Carl Jung emphasized, unconscious individuals become prisoners of their shadows without realizing it, while conscious ones achieve freedom by exploring their inner world. Another key sign is constant blame of others. Jung believed that one of the biggest obstacles to psychological growth is avoiding responsibility and always pointing the finger elsewhere. This tendency shows that a person is avoiding examining their own shadow and blocks their inner transformation. When someone blames others, they refuse to take responsibility for negative events in their life and justify themselves by blaming external factors. While this mental mechanism may bring short-term relief, in the long run it leads to serious psychological and social problems. Jung's concept of psychological wholeness involves accepting one's inner world as it is and developing awareness. But when a person constantly blames others for their failures and disappointments, they fail to see their own flaws and cannot make real progress. Over time, this weakens their inner self and prevents healthy relationships with others. Blaming others is often a defense mechanism. Recognizing one's mistakes can be uncomfortable because it requires admitting imperfection. But blaming others protects the ego and gives a false sense of superiority. According to Carl Jung, personal psychological growth begins when a person takes responsibility for their own inner life. Blaming external factors keeps one stuck in a victim mentality, preventing true development. Those who constantly blame others not only hinder their own progress, but also damage their relationships. They tend to look for someone to blame for every mistake instead of owning their role and making necessary changes. This leads to ongoing problems in friendships, family, and work, because they refuse to reflect on their own actions and instead create tension by blaming others. Jung believed that self-criticism is essential for growth. Without it, a person disables their inner mechanism for self-improvement. Instead of recognizing their faults, fears, and insecurities, they project these negative feelings onto others. Real growth happens when someone can see their mistakes and work to transform them. Those who blame others miss this chance and often cause more trouble for themselves and those around them. For Jung, true transformation comes from understanding one's own psychological processes. People who focus on external faults waste energy instead of looking inward. They keep making the same mistakes and live in a mindset of victimhood. Blaming others is a clear sign of unconsciousness, blocking personal and social development. Jung emphasized that taking responsibility is the path to inner wholeness and genuine freedom, rather than pretending to be a victim and living passively. Self-awareness begins when we confront our shadows and start inner transformation. Those who blame others continue to harm themselves and others by ignoring their subconscious darkness. To become conscious and wise, one must first accept personal responsibility and turn inward rather than pointing fingers. Another sign of a lack of understanding of symbols and myths, according to Jung, is this inability to connect with deeper meanings. He believed the human mind contains a deep unconscious layer expressed through symbols and myths, rooted in the experience of ancestors in history. These symbols and myths act as bridges, helping us make sense of our inner worlds. Through them, we interpret and understand our unconscious processes. Some people are unable to explore the depths of life because they are closed off from that symbolic world. They remain stuck in surface-level realities. Those who can't understand symbols and myths focus only on literal, concrete facts and ignore the deeper messages from the unconscious. As a result, they find themselves in an incomplete psychological state. According to Carl Jung, breaking this connection prevents us from understanding that the unconscious is trying to send us messages today. Jung's theory of archetypes explains how the collective unconscious shapes our psychology. When someone can't interpret the symbolic meaning behind images in their dreams or events they experience, they live detached from their inner unconscious processes. Myths and symbols reveal and guide us toward insights hidden within the unconscious mind. But when someone is cut off from this depth, they see events and ideas only on a superficial level. Jung argued that one of the biggest problems today is that myths and symbols have lost their psychological function. In ancient times, myths served as guides, helping people find meaning in their existence. Today, many have lost that connection and build their lives solely around material success and external goals. Those who can't understand symbols and myths risk falling into a vast emptiness, lacking the capacity to seek a deeper purpose that nourishes their inner world. Such people often live mechanically, without genuine fulfillment. Jung's analytical psychology emphasizes that reconnecting with unconscious symbols can help overcome a crisis of meaning, but those who cannot do this may eventually feel morally drained. The inability to read symbols prevents proper understanding of one's own psychological processes. The concept of the shadow reflects the repressed aspects of the unconscious. But someone closed off to symbolic thinking cannot have the courage to face their own shadows. Without a connection to the unconscious, they struggle to develop psychological depth, often leading their lives based on the superficial reactions. The failure to understand symbols and myths is one of the biggest obstacles to personal psychological and spiritual development. Learning the language of symbols allows individuals to raise their level of consciousness and live more intentionally. Conversely, those who cannot do this tend to live on the surface, disconnected from their unconscious processes. Over time, this can lead to a profound loss of meaning and spiritual dissatisfaction. But a person who understands the language of symbols and myths can infuse their life with greater depth and act in harmony with their inner wisdom. According to Jung's philosophy, true consciousness begins with the ability to control instinctive behavior. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious world of humans is shaped by instincts. These instincts are the core drives that help us survive, protect ourselves, and continue our lives unconsciously. A key sign of lacking inner awareness is the inability to control these instinctive urges. Jung taught that we are born with the instinct to interact with our environment and respond to it. But developing consciousness requires us to manage these instincts and guide them in healthy directions. People who hate controlling their impulses often feel overwhelmed by uncontrolled desires and lose their sense of free will. According to Jung's analytical psychology, to achieve inner wholeness, a person must recognize their unconscious impulses, oppose them, and consciously manage them. Those enslaved by their instincts act unconsciously and hinder their psychological growth. Impulsive and quick-tempered individuals often act without thinking, making decisions they later regret. Jung emphasized that human inner structure is not just conscious, it also contains powerful elements like the shadow, anima, and animus. If a person does not develop a conscious mechanism of control, they become dominated by these forces and follow their instincts blindly. Jung believed that such a situation indicates inner imbalance and a failure to confront one's shadow. True awareness isn't about denying instincts but understanding and consciously directing them. Instinctive behavior often causes people to become slaves to their desires and fears. Jung stressed that achieving psychological wholeness requires managing the chaotic energies within. In Jungian psychology, it's essential to raise one's level of consciousness to reach self-actualization. A person consumed by their instincts cannot engage in deep psychological processes because they are focused only on immediate impulses. For example, if someone only follows their desires and needs instead of listening to others, it shows they are acting instinctively and lack awareness. According to Jung, true maturity happens when a person can control impulsive reactions and filter them through consciousness. However, those who cannot control their instincts tend to repeat the same mistakes and cannot improve themselves. The inability to control instincts also hinders a person from achieving long-term goals. According to Carl Jung, individuation involves harmonizing the inner world and reaching a more conscious way of living. But someone who cannot regulate their instincts gets caught in an endless cycle of chasing fleeting pleasures. Jung believed that balancing consciousness and the unconscious allows a person to attain psychological integration. However, those who let their instincts take over fall under the control of their subconscious and lose the ability to steer their lives. People unable to manage their instinctive behavior are doomed to live unconsciously. To build a healthy relationship with the unconscious, Jung argued, a person must become aware of their instincts and learn to control them. Cognitive control is present in those who have reflective skills and can develop conscious perception. True awareness arises when a person understands their instincts, balances them, and lives mindfully. But as Jung emphasized, those who cannot do this remain prisoners of their unconscious, leading to a life driven by hidden forces, both individually and socially. The sixth sign is focusing only on the external world. Jung believed that human psychology is rooted in balancing inner and outer realities. A healthy person knows their inner self and consciously engages with the outside world. Yet some people concentrate solely on external factors, such as social expectations, material success, status, or approval, and ignore their inner life. According to Jung, this disconnect causes people to lose touch with their true nature, and over time, develop a sense of inner emptiness. When someone is only interested in the external world, they fail to explore the depths of their own self. Such individuals often live according to societal expectations, depend on others' approval, and lead superficial lives. In Jungian psychology, self-realization requires an inward journey, but a person fixated on external factors constantly worries about others' opinions and cannot hear their inner voice. Typically, they base their lives on work, career, social status, and material possessions. Eventually, however, they may realize that these external pursuits do not bring genuine fulfillment because the search for meaning is a deep internal process. A person focused solely on the external remains in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, as no external success can fill the inner void. According to Carl Jung, facing yourself and exploring your unconscious processes are key steps in spiritual growth. Jung believed that true identity is revealed not through external labels, but through an inward journey into the unconscious mind. However, people who focus only on the outer world often see themselves through others' eyes. When someone feels confident from success, they can face deep identity crises when failure occurs. Those who are only tuned in to external achievements tend to ignore spiritual and psychological development. Jung taught that personal growth happens through exploring your inner world, connecting with the unconscious, and discovering your true self. This process requires balancing internal and external realities. Someone fixated only on the outside may never complete it because they avoid self-exploration. Without understanding and acceptance of their inner self, they can't find true satisfaction, whether through external success or inner awareness. Jung emphasized that neglecting inner reflection leads to a search for meaning. Human nature makes it impossible to be truly fulfilled by external achievements alone. Real fulfillment comes from both understanding your inner world and succeeding outwardly. What do you think about this? Do you believe people today have enough time for inner growth? Or are we constantly distracted by external stimuli? What do you do to explore your inner world? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your ideas will deepen this discussion. If you'd like to see more content like this, please like the video and subscribe to the Carl Jung Philosophy channel. Your support helps us produce more quality videos. Thanks for watching. And by the way, the join button is active. Become a member and support our channel so we can create even more great content. Thank you.